Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, I want to share with you a story that stuck with me for years. One of those childhood memories that seemed so strange at the time, but only made more sense as I got older, and even now, it still lingers. Imagine a summer day, the sun shining, family gathered around a barbecue, kids running around, and everything seems normal. But what if something happened that changed the way you saw the world? Something you couldn't explain, something that followed you long after that day ended. That's exactly what happened to me. A random accident while climbing a tree, a cicada's eerie hum, and then a strange, ringing sound that wouldn't leave my head. It was as if the universe had nudged me into something far bigger than I could have imagined at that age. And trust me, it only got weirder from there. So, grab a seat, get comfy, and let's dive into a childhood memory that still haunts me to this day. This is the story of the strange ringing that started with a cicada's buzz, but ended up changing everything. Stay tuned, because this one's a bit unsettling. Let's get into it. When I look back on it now, it seems like the beginning of something I couldn't quite explain, or maybe even something I was too young to understand. At the time, it just felt like a weird event, something that could be chalked up to the oddities of childhood. But it wasn't until much later that I realized how deeply that event would impact me. I was about 9 or 10 years old, still at that age where I didn't quite understand the full scope of the world around me, but I was old enough to start forming memories that would stick with me for years. It was summer, hot and lazy, the kind of summer day that should have been filled with bike rides, ice cream, and the endless hum of crickets. But for me, it turned into something a little darker. It started with a barbecue at one of my cousin's houses. The whole family was there, uncles, aunts, distant relatives, and even some family friends I didn't really know all that well. We were outside, gathered around the grill, and I remember it being one of those classic family gatherings where the adults did most of the talking, and we kids just kind of ran around doing whatever seemed fun in the moment. It was the kind of event where you could lose yourself in the noise and the chaos without a care in the world. I was always the adventurous one, the kind of kid who couldn't sit still for long, always climbing trees or poking around in the woods. At some point during the barbecue, I spotted this large tree near the edge of the yard, its branches sprawling up high, offering what looked like the perfect vantage point. Climbing it felt like an obvious choice. So, without a second thought, I scrambled up, my little legs swinging from branch to branch. The first time I made it up, no big deal. I wasn't the most coordinated kid, but I could usually manage my way through things like this. The tree felt solid under my feet, sturdy and familiar, like it was just waiting for someone to climb it. But then, just as I was getting comfortable, the branch beneath me snapped. I didn't even see it coming, and suddenly I was falling, brief, disorienting, and before I knew it, I was on the ground, sprawled out in the grass. I was fine, thankfully. A bit shaken, maybe, but no broken bones or serious injury. Still, my pride was bruised. I wasn't going to let a silly fall stop me, though. Not me. So I went over to my grandma for help. She was always the one who would do whatever she could to help me out, no matter how impossible the task seemed. And this time, I needed her assistance to climb back up the tree. Grandma stood there, stooped a little from age, her arms extended beneath me as I awkwardly climbed up her shoulders to reach the next branch. It was a bit of a struggle, my legs pressed against her back, and I'm sure I wasn't exactly gentle as I scrambled. But just as I was about to get a solid foothold, something unexpected happened. Out of nowhere, a cicada, one of those big, loud, obnoxious insects, suddenly came buzzing past me. I wasn't expecting it, and neither was my grandma. I kicked her square in the face, an accident that I'd probably still feel guilty about if I didn't laugh about it in hindsight. She wasn't hurt, just startled, and the cicada flew away with its signature high-pitched hum. For some reason, that sound stuck with me. It's like it triggered something in the back of my mind, though I didn't know it at the time. The rest of the day went on without much incident, and eventually we all went home, tired and sunburnt from the heat. I thought the whole tree climbing thing was over, just another funny family story to tell, but the cicada's buzzing had a lasting effect on me. I didn't realize it yet, but something had started to change in my mind. A few hours after we got home, it started. At first, it was just a distant hum. It didn't seem out of the ordinary. It could have been from the outside, the sound of some insect in the trees, or maybe even a lawnmower from a neighbor's yard. But as the hours passed, I began to notice it more. It wasn't just in the background anymore. It was louder, persistent. I tried to ignore it, thinking it was just some random sound in the night. But it didn't stop. And it wasn't coming from outside. It was as if the sound was inside the house. I could hear it from my room, even with the window shut. And when I closed my eyes to sleep, it followed me, always faint, but always there. I didn't tell anyone at first. It felt silly to mention it. I didn't want to sound crazy, and I thought maybe I was just hearing things. But when it didn't go away, I started to get frustrated. Days passed, and the sound was still there, the cicada-like hum filling the air, making my skin crawl. I couldn't escape it. The ringing, constant and unyielding, seemed to pulse through my head, louder at times, softer at others, but never completely gone. My mind would play tricks on me, like it was coming from behind a wall or under the floorboards. It would stop, only to start again from a completely different spot in the house. I mentioned it to my mom after a few days of not being able to sleep. I could see the concern in her eyes, but she didn't seem to take it as seriously as I did. "It's just a neighbor, maybe their lawnmower or something," she said, trying to comfort me. But I knew it wasn't that. My hearing was sensitive, always had been. I could pick up on things that others missed. And this wasn't just some background noise. It was a presence, a constant drone, like a weight on my mind. We searched the house room by room, trying to locate the source of the sound. I would point, saying, "It's coming from over there." But by the time we reached the spot, the ringing would stop, only to start again in another part of the house. My mom chalked it up to my imagination, but I was certain that this wasn't normal. It wasn't something I was making up. The ringing continued for what felt like weeks. 2 weeks, to be exact. Then, just as suddenly as it had started, it stopped. Gone. Silence. I don't know why it stopped, but the absence of it was almost as unsettling as the sound itself. It left a strange void in my mind, something I couldn't fill with anything else. I remember lying in bed that night, the quiet feeling almost unnatural. I could hear the soft rustling of leaves outside, but that was it. No cicadas. No buzzing. Just nothing. It never happened again. The ringing, the hallucinations, the buzzing. It just vanished. But by then, something inside me had shifted. It wasn't the same after that. The strange hum of the cicada had marked the beginning of something else, a slow unraveling that would continue through the years. Over time, I began to experience more of what I can only describe as hallucinations. Most of them were bug-related. At first, I would see shadows moving in the corners of my eyes, strange little shapes that looked like bugs skittering across walls or creeping along the floor. Sometimes I would hear the buzzing again, just a hint of it, like a reminder of that first ringing sound that had invaded my childhood. As I grew older, the hallucinations changed. They weren't always bug-related anymore, but they still lingered. It was like my brain had rewired itself to be hyper-aware of things that weren't there. I would see figures in the shadows, things that moved when they shouldn't, faces that flickered in the periphery of my vision. And yet, no one else seemed to notice. I wish I could say the hallucinations were just a phase, something I grew out of. But the truth is, they've never really stopped. And now, in my current home, with its constant roach problem, they've only worsened. The bugs I see in my mind have become more real, more vivid. Sometimes it feels like I'm not alone. And it all traces back to that moment, the cicada's ring, the tree, and the strange thing that started in my childhood. I've learned to live with it. But sometimes, when the house is too quiet, or when the world feels too still, I can't help but wonder if the sound will ever come back, or if it's already here, hiding just out of reach.